Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Chasing Giants podcast. We're going to get the show started in just a minute, but before we do, I want to play a video that we aired earlier this week from Lester's Feet. And it's just a quick announcement about how Lester's Feet is helping hurricane victims. So if you're looking for a way to help and are interested in that, stay tuned. It's going to play in just a second. If you want to skip forward to the start of this podcast, skip forward to about the 5-minute mark and we'll get the show on the road. You're not going to want to miss it because Don talks about being able to kill his target buck, Zacchaeus, in this episode. So thanks for your support. Stay tuned. Enjoy. Hey everyone, this is Terry from the Chasing Giants podcast and Lester's Feet, and today I'm here to talk to you about this hurricane, and I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. I've been heartbroken, and I haven't felt this way since about 3.5 years ago when I heard about the Ward sisters, you know, those two girls from Kentucky that were diagnosed with leukemia at the same time, and that family was trying to navigate that through COVID. That feeling that you want to help but don't know how. You know, through Chasing Giants, we were able to connect all these people that wanted to help but just didn't have a way or knew of a way to do it. And that same feeling came across this week. I watched as this other hurricane was slamming into Florida while all these people in North Carolina and Tennessee have just been devastated. People have lost their homes. People have lost their lives. So here I am thinking, God, what is a way that I can help? How can I use what we have? How can Lester's Feet help? I mean, we don't help disaster relief. We help sick kids and families that are navigating breast cancer. That evening, our senior minister at my home church, the Sermon Church of Christ, posts something on Facebook and says they have identified a sister congregation, the Mountain City Church in Mountain City, Tennessee, that is currently feeding 800 to 1,000 folks a day. They're feeding them every day. They're housing displaced people. And more importantly, they're starting to work with families who are trying to restore water and deal with flooded water. So dehumidifiers, fans, all of the things from this mass flooding to try to get people back in their homes with running water. Wow. Here I am trying to figure out what to do, and then bam, here comes an opportunity. So I got with the Lester's Feet board. I called a couple of our very generous donors of Lester's Feet and said, what do you all think? Our goal is to help families with sick kids, but we got money in the bank and we got people that are hurting. What do we do? Both our donors and our board want to help, and we're going to do that. So why am I here is I know there's a lot of people that are just like me. They want to help, they don't know how. And you're a little bit jaded. I'll call it like it is. You're a little bit jaded about sending money to some place you don't know where the money goes. Lester's Feet has always been committed that 100% of every dollar that you give goes to help a family, period. So what I'm here today to do is tell you that with the partnership and working with my home church, the Sherman Church of Christ, we've created a fund and we're donating the start of $25,000 that's going to go to the Mountain City Church to help these families, not only to keep feeding these people, but also get water restored and deal with some of this water mess that's affecting these people down there. All money goes to families. So I'm asking for your all's prayers. This was never intended for what Lester's Feet was originally supposed to be, but it's the right thing to do. We have the means, the network, the community of people that can rally around and do the right thing for our brothers and sisters, and they're hurting right now. So if you're called to want to help but don't know how, there's all kinds of organizations out there that you can vet out and find, and I encourage you to do that. If you don't have time or don't have the means to do that, and you would like to join Lester's Feet and the Sherman Church of Christ and the Mountain City Church with this pocket community right on the state line of Tennessee and North Carolina, and you want to do that and be assured that 100% of your money goes to those families to recover from this mess, you're more than welcome to join us. You can mail a check into the Lester's Feet Foundation at P.O. Box 250, Dry Ridge, Kentucky, 41035, and we'll pool that money all together and send it down there. If we have the opportunity to network with another church in Florida, since they just got bombarded with this storm last night, we're going to do that too. You know, we all have different missions, we all have different callings, but at some point in time, we just have to stop and figure out how to help, no matter what it is. And that's what we're trying to do. So we appreciate so much this Chasing Giants community that have rallied around Lester's Feet. You guys have been so awesome and so supportive, and we have helped so many families. It is unbelievable and humbling how many people, you all who have donated and prayed, have been able to make a difference in their lives. Now we have people hurting in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida. Let's go try to help them. God bless you. If you want to help and join in with what we're doing, by all means, we're just trying to create a conduit and then connect the dots for you all. But find a way to help somewhere, somehow. We appreciate it. Thanks for the support. God bless.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast with Don Higgins. I'm Terry Peer, brought to you by Osseo Gear, the big buck killer. Don Higgins did not wait long to get it done this year. We're actually recording October 10th, just 2 days after you killed your target buck, Zacchaeus. And man, we just introduced and talked about this buck on the podcast, and you get it done just a couple hunts into the season. Let's just talk about it. We're not going to tell everything. We're going to save some for the video, but let's just unwrap this. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about on the podcast, but people's here to hear about this buck.
Well, I was pretty confident I would kill him at some point during the season, unless he broke his antler, or, somebody else happened to get him first. If he was alive, I was pretty sure I was going to get a crack at him. I just had no idea it would happen that quick. Just last Friday, we put out the video introducing the buck, and then it was only my fourth hunt of the year, and ended up shooting him. Really good story behind it. I'm not going to share all of it because I want to save it for the video, because this video, I'm telling you, is going to be very educational. The tactic I used to kill this buck is something I haven't done in a lot of years, but it was the perfect time to pull it out of my bag of tricks. And I think it's one of those situations where my experience, decades of experience, came into play. A beginning hunter might not have pulled it off because he'd have never thought to do what I did, and I haven't done it in many years. But I had one stand that I could hunt that buck from with the wind direction that day, and I went in, and I didn't think the odds were that good of that buck coming past that stand, so I did something to get him coming that way. And we'll save that for the video, but I can tell you there's not very many hunters in the woods doing it, if probably less than 1% even think about doing it. But
so you shot him on Tuesday evening, right? Was it Tuesday evening?
Monday evening.
Monday evening. Monday would have been what date? Was that the 7th?
7th.
That would have been the 7th. Sorry, I had to do math in my head. You know me as a product of the Kentucky education system. It takes a little bit. But, you told a close group of people what had happened, and due to the shot, you wanted to play it safe and back out and go for him the next morning. So, pictures you didn't make an announcement, didn't say anything until you had your hands on the buck. And I remember the Facebook post saying boom, and then it starts all the work with pictures and videos and all of that with all of your friends around you. You had Joe Johnson, Al Foster, Wes Delks was there. Our good friend Kyle Harmon did a fantastic job with pictures. He does just such a good job. We're so blessed to have him as a really good friend. And then Lee Miller was also there. I think I got everybody right.
Yeah, Lee Mitchell,
sorry. So all of those guys were there. I offered to drive through the night from Knoxville to get there, but we decided not to. But, it was one of those things. That deer was dead, but you weren't going to risk it. And I went after him the next morning, and he wasn't very far away. So for those who are wondering, it was not a morning hunt. That was the most common question that popped up on Tuesday morning when you posted it on mid-morning was, did you kill him in the morning on an October morning?
Yeah, that did not happen. I've not hunted a morning yet and won't for at least another week or so. But, when I shot him, he ran straight away from me, and then he stopped. He ran about 60 yards and stopped. And I got the binoculars, and he was kind of in the brush. There's no way I could have stuck another arrow in him, but he was facing straight away from me. Had his butt to me, and I'm looking at him through binoculars, and he doesn't even act hit. He's just standing there, and I can't see his side, so I can't see a wound or anything on his side, and he's just standing there facing straight away from me, and he doesn't act hurt. He just is standing there like a statue, pretty much, head up. And he did that for probably, 4 or 5 minutes. And then he just slowly walked away, and he didn't walk away like he was hurt or anything. And that had me concerned because I probably had my eyes on him for 5 minutes after the shot. And in 5 minutes, if you're hit through the lungs of the heart, usually they're on the ground in 5 minutes.
How far away I know what stand you were in. He couldn't have been too far away when you hit him.
He was less than 20 yards, probably 18 yards or so. Yep. And the arrow went clear through him and stuck in the ground. So, there was no arrow sticking out of him that I could see. So I was when he just stood there and then walked away as if nothing happened, I'm scratching my head like, I'm not sure what just happened here, but I'm not taking any chances. I wanted to find him in his first bed, which is exactly what happened. And the thing of it is, the exit, he was slightly quartering to me, and the exit hole had a big old chunk of fat, probably the size of my fist, hanging out. And it had plugged the hole, and we did not find blood at all for the first 100 yards or so, maybe even a little farther than that, probably around 100, 120 yards, no blood whatsoever. And then Joe Johnson found a splattering of blood, and it was not just a speck, it was like a pretty good pile of blood. And from that point, it was easy to follow, because from that point on, he was bleeding good. I don't know, I guess his chest cavity filled up. When I field dressed that deer, his chest cavity was just absolutely full. Gallons of blood rushed out of that deer, and it would have been on the ground had it not been for that big clump of fat. And
and he was so close that he was so close the entry hole was high.
Exactly.
So it couldn't come out that side.
Yep. And I know guys are going to say you should have been using the expandable, and just to show how, open-minded I am, I will admit that on that particular hit, an expandable broadhead would have probably done a better job. I think it would have left a bigger, exit hole, and there would have probably been more blood trail. I'm still not going to switch to mechanical broadheads, but I'm fair enough that I would say that hit would have probably been expandable.
In that situation, the edge would have gone to that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after you hit the buck, Don, did he go towards a property line, or did he go towards the core of your property?
He went towards the core of the property, towards the switchgrass, and he didn't make it to the switchgrass, but he wasn't leaving.
So that was the other thing, not to pressure him. He was going towards the core, not toward, just let him go, let him lay. Now, did he have any coyote damage to him when you found him the next morning?
No, not at all. And
just stiff as a board.
Yeah, he was stiff. There's no doubt about it. And it was a cool evening.
The video footage I watched of you wrestling this thing around, trying to get pictures of it, was quite comical.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
It got down to 40 degrees that night. So the meat was good. We got him field dressed right away and took the garden hose of cold water and got him all rinsed out and everything, and skinned him right away as well. And actually, before the morning was over, I'd had the pictures done and had someone stop by that I give the meat to, so he was processed that day and nothing went to waste. But
That's great.
there's a good lesson there that you want to find your deer in the first bed they make, and you got to let them die at the first bed. If you jump them from that first bed, your odds of recovering that deer go way down. And that even if they're going to die, they might die on their feet on a dead run or whatever, and are very tough to find. And I always want to do everything I can to let those deer die in the first bed, and then the odds of finding them are way better.
Well, we're gonna learn a lot more about this deer named Zacchaeus, the hunt, the strategy, everything. Like you said, this hunt video is going to be a virtual masterclass episode of this hunt, because it's going to go into not only the tactic on the deer, but even where the deer was bedding at, the wind direction for the hunt, the wind direction for access, every piece of the puzzle on this. And, every hunt video that ends up getting produced, it has a different feel or different spin. And you've decided to do this one as really educational, to try to show all of the pieces of the pie that went into this. And it's going to be a really cool thing. Now, I want to take a minute and talk about something, and that's our relationship with Matthews, because there's already a lot of questions about why some pictures that showed where the bow was at are either blacked out or blurred out, and there's a reason for that we want to openly talk about.
Yeah, so, I'm extremely blessed that Matthews and I have had a long relationship, well over 20 years now that I've been on their pro staff. And in the last few years, they've even started sending me their latest model bow before it is released to the public. So they sent me the 2025 bow that's not even in the hands of the dealers yet.
Nobody's seen this thing.
Yeah, it's not been released. Their release is, I think, November 19th.
Yep.
But as part of the agreement to get these bows, you got to keep everything under wraps, and no pictures released. You can't take it to your local archery shop and say, hey, look what I got, or anything like that. They sent it to me. It's already paper tuned. It's got the rest on it. It's got the D loop on the string. And all I got to do when I get it is, mount my sight to it, mount the quiver, and adjust my sight to get it. And I'm telling you what, this one here, when they sent it to me, it was unbelievable. I screwed my sight on, went out, and I thought, I'll shoot one arrow and see how I need to adjust things. I shot that one arrow into the bullseye, the very first arrow out of that bow, and did nothing but screw my sight on it. I actually took a picture of the arrow and the target, and I sent it to Caleb Perry there at Matthews and said, I'd never seen anything like this. I just screwed my sight on and I hit the bullseye. And I did shoot several more arrows and fine-tuned it just a little bit. But it's just a fantastic bow. I can't wait for people to see it. And I can't wait for people to hear the story, because that bow plays into the story of this hunt in a big way.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting for your situation is you do not shoot a peep sight. You use a different style sight, and we probably, that needs to make a reminder to myself and Steve Shields, we probably need to get some footage of this antique sight that you use from 1964. Might not be that old, but it's old. But you don't shoot a peep sight, so that plays into not having to, somebody like me that uses a peep that has to get it perfectly at the right spot and have it tied in, that would be a little bit different. So, but yeah, the whole deal with this specific bow, this 2025 early release bow, it's just another interesting, just really cool nugget that's part of the story that's going to be awesome to show you folks about. So we don't know for sure. We're still going through footage, pictures. I mean, this is just a couple days in. But we got to talk with Joe Miles a little bit and strategize with what other footage we have and other hunts that we have. But we're gonna probably play that. I'm gonna guess maybe November, but that's still to be determined. We'll have to talk with Joe about it. So we'll produce that hunt here before too long and let people see the story of Zacchaeus in its entirety. And really happy to bring that to everyone. Let's take a quick break from Osseo and come back and talk about another hunt that you and I are so stoked about, and that is Brandon Epperson's hunt video that's going to drop on October 11th. We're recording this, so it's tomorrow, but you had a chance to watch the final version just yesterday or today. Steve did another fantastic job on another video, so let's take a quick break and come back and talk about Brandon's hunt video.
Osseo Gear has perfected one of the most innovative camo patterns on the market. The unique camo pattern designed to mimic the feather patterns of one of North America's greatest predators, the great horned owl. Combined with intuitive features, superior comfort, and ultra high quality fabrics give bow hunters the ultimate advantage. Osseo has outfitted over 10,000 bow hunters across the country with over 1,000 5-star reviews. Visit asiogear.com to check it out for yourself. Use code CHASINGGIANTS for 15% off.
Well, Don, congratulations again on Zacchaeus riding the wave. Now the question is targeting another mature world-class whitetail for your second bow tag, and you get to be picky now. So it'll be interesting what unfolds as all of this corn comes out of the ground and bucks start moving around and you see what shows up, right?
Yeah, I've been checking cameras. I think I checked 7 cameras on 3 properties yesterday. Checked a couple more today. In the morning, I'm going out to check cameras on a property that I've just got permission for this fall. I've not checked those cameras at all yet. I don't have a stand on that property at all yet. And I've heard reports in the last couple of years of a giant living in that area, so who knows what, even there may be something there. The odds are against it, but I'm searching for another target buck, and to be honest, I do not have one right now. I need to shoot several more does, which I'm definitely going to be doing, especially once the weather cools down, but I do not have another target buck, so.
And there's always a story, a bigger picture that you're documenting on your farm. There's always a bigger long-term game or strategy that you're playing. And we were just talking before we recorded about, strategic things that you want to do and culling specific deer and what we're going to try to do. We've pretty much drawn the conclusion that the target buck that I was after this year, the area that it was in, got decimated with EHD. So we got our fingers crossed that he will show back up, but the likelihood that is going to happen is down. So we're both kind of looking for what the next part of this season's going to be and play it by ear. So let's talk about. Go ahead.
I was just say I got my grandson Walker coming to hunt with me this weekend for youth season, and there's some bucks that I hope he gets a shot at, but there's a couple that are going to be off limits, but they'll be off limits to me and everybody else. He's going to get the green light on more bucks than anybody else just because of who he is, but we'll see how that goes. So hopefully have another story for next podcast.
Is it, what's the weather like this coming weekend for youth season? I know our friend Patrick Simpson's bringing his son up. I think it's supposed to cool down, isn't it?
It is. Saturday, I think it's supposed to be 84 degrees. And then Sunday, it's in the 60s, high 60s as a high. So there's going to be a major cold front come through Saturday night. And, youth season is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So there's going to be at least 2 good days, Sunday and Monday, and hopefully Saturday evening as well. So I'm going to guess there'll be some bucks hit the ground.
Well, before we do our listener-submitted questions, we're going to talk about bucks hitting the ground because the Monday, the 7th, 8th, and 9th, that period of time in October, I don't remember this many giant bucks killed. I might be completely wrong, but it just seemed like there was some mega giants killed, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But before that, let's circle back to Brandon Epperson's Kentucky buck hunt. Those who are watching Sunday, Monday, Tuesday this week, it just released on Friday. I hope you guys go back and watch it. I am so happy for Brandon that he finally gets a hunt video produced at this quality. He's wanted to do this for a long time. This is his third year tagging out on opening weekend in Kentucky. Last year was a buck over 200 inches in full velvet, and this year comes back with his third opening weekend buck that was just a dandy also.
Yeah, I tell you, I'd seen pictures of the buck, and I knew it was a great buck, but the video I watched today that Steve did of that hunt just blew me away. And I was so impressed that I reached out to Brandon too and told him great job, because I mean, Brandon's just a big old country boy like me. You're not going to see him or I in Hollywood. And he did such a fantastic job on that video that I had to reach out and congratulate him and tell him what a good job he did. And then Steve as well. Steve tied everything together just fantastic, and his video production skills are just out of this world. He knows, he picks the right music to play in the background as things are happening, and he's just got her down. He got down. Somebody that needs to go to Hollywood is Steve. Brandon and I'll stay home in the woods, and Steve needs to go to Hollywood and produce movies or something.
Well, at the end of the day, here's the thing. The tough part about Steve's job is somebody comes up with just, let's say, a Rubbermaid tote of Legos, of trail camera pictures, B-roll footage, all of these little bitty clips on a hard drive, and they dump it on Steve's desk and say, build me a hunt video. And having to go through all of that and create a storyboard and create graphics like he does. He took topographic 3D models of Brandon's farm and rotated them around and showed where the original plan was and how they changed to the secondary plan based on what the buck was doing, and put all that in a story that's entertaining enough that it keeps you engaged, that you don't want to, turn it off and go flip to the next video on your phone. That's the tough part about his job. I think he will downplay it, but the easy part of his job is actually video editing on his computer. He could do that stuff really fast, but organizing everything to tell the story, whether it was Babe or Mel or when he did the video for, in tribute to your daughter, or he's always telling a story. And just so I'm happy for Brandon. I was just with him probably about 2 hours ago, and we were talking about the day that Steve came down to video the interview part of it, and he's like, I've never seen anything like it. I was sitting there on this tobacco wagon on the back of the ridge, and we had to wait for 35 minutes until the sun was in this perfect spot before Steve started the interview because he wanted this specific light. And he said, I've never been around anything like that before, but that's what Steve brings to the table. A little bit of elegance and class to us rednecks.
Yeah. You made the comparison to a bunch of pieces of Lego that he's got to put together. And it's one thing if you was part of that hunt. If it's your hunt, you've been chasing this animal for 2 or 3 years or whatever, and you've been there every step of the way, you could pick up them pieces and you could lay them out in order. Now, most people, me included, are not going to be talented enough to make it look good, but we know where everything goes. Steve wasn't there. He's not there on most of my hunts either. And for him to put them pieces together the way he does is just absolutely awesome.
I mean, from his first draft to where the final production was, we had like 4 things that we said, hey, let's tweak just a little bit and move a trail camera here, picture here, or do something here. And I mean, just the fact, it was 99.99% there without us even looking at it. We're very blessed to have Steve on board, and there's going to be a bunch of people, complain and moan and send some hate mail because this is a Kentucky hunt with supplemental feeding, and it's fine. I told Brandon to be ready for it. It's this TV show, we committed to bringing all different types of hunters and styles together, and that's what makes this show different. Brandon's going to go to Illinois and hunt where he can't use it. And there's going to be others that hunt in the South or hunt in Kansas that are going to use it. And what I did appreciate with Brandon is he was not like some of the outdoor community where he tried to hide it. he actually talked in detail about it and actually talked about his strategy and used it. So I tip my hat to Brandon in it, and I just hope people enjoy the story and congratulate him for killing another just whopper of a buck on opening weekend of Kentucky. He deserves every bit of congratulations from everybody. I hope you guys go over and watch the video.
Yeah, I would be willing to bet that the majority of hunters in Kentucky and Ohio are using bait. I mean, there's some that don't, but I bet more than half in those two states are using it.
More than 80%.
And I think it was Steve. I was on the phone with Steve today, and he said something about that. And I said, you know what? It's not our place to dictate the morals for the rest of the hunting community. I mean, if it's legal, who are we to question it? Yeah, I've got my opinions, and they're usually pretty strong opinions about a number of things. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to, look down on the next guy for having the opposite opinion. And this, like you said, this show has got so many different people involved, different hunters from different parts of the country where different traditions happen, that you're going to see a little bit of everything. We're just trying to represent deer hunting the way it actually happens across the country.
Yep. One of the series of videos on the channel that I really hope people are paying attention to is Bobby Worthington's philosophy of whitetail deer hunting. And there's the second introduction video was released on October 10th. And he's breaking down this in a series of different videos through the season. And they're going to be shorter videos. They're not going to be real long, but it's almost like those, I wish I could go back and sit on the porch with my grandpa or the tailgate of my grandpa and just listen. That's what these videos are like with Bobby Worthington. And I really hope that the younger people in the hunting community go watch and listen to these videos. I think it's Ty Miller from Small Acre Hunting told me the other day. He says he really thinks that having him on this is just another way of connecting the new generation to, some of the pioneers of this thing, because he's no doubt one of the best guys that ever climbed in a tree.
Yeah, he's a totally different, hunts totally different than the majority of deer hunters. He doesn't hunt much early season. He doesn't hunt much late season. He's a rut hunter. He's hunting in the mountains, the big woods. He's not hunting field edges. He's not hunting over fields or food plots or feeders. It's just almost like a mountain man reading the sign and knowing, reading the terrain as well and knowing where to hang his stand, and then just sitting there and waiting on that giant to come by, because he knows without a doubt in his mind that sooner or later that buck's coming by that spot. And that's what he's so good at, is picking out that spot where that giant is going to come by, and then Bobby just waits him out.
Well, before we go on to our listener submitted questions this week, let's talk just a little bit about how many mega giants were shot the 7th, 8th, and 9th of this week. And am I wrong, or did there just seem to be a lot of really big mature bucks shot? I mean, I just don't remember this early. I mean, I'm trying to think who all shot one. Jared Mills shot one. The guys from Seek One shot one. There was like 2 mega giants in Ohio that I saw shot. I mean, I would venture to guess there was 5 plus 200 deer that just I saw on social media this week. And there was a couple 190s in there. I mean, I don't remember that. It seems like we got a week of mega giants, and then half the rest of the country's dying of EHD. Every deer's dead. So it seems like it's all or nothing here this week.
Yeah, and EHD is still really bad. I talked to Todd Ewing today, and his area just got totally wiped out. But a few miles away, there's areas that they haven't found any dead deer. So it's really spotty, but in the areas where it's hit, it has been really bad. And the big bucks you're talking about, yeah, I noticed it too. There was several that was killed. It was almost like you would expect a 2 or 3 day period in the rut, where they're dropping right and left. I think it's over. I mean, the temperature warmed up as we got further into the week, and the kill photos that I was seeing on social media really slowed down. But early in the week, yeah, there were several giants killed.
Yeah, well, congratulations, all those. Remember, we'd like to celebrate with you. So tag Chasing Giants TV, Real World Osseo. We'd love to celebrate with you. And if it's a good, cleaned up picture without the tongue hanging out and beer cans all over the place, we might even share it for you and tell you congratulations. You never know. So before we do our listener submitted questions, let's take a quick break and listen to a spot from our good friends at Midwest Land Group, and we'll be right back.
Ever had a terrible real estate experience? Average realtors usually spend more time selling themselves than on selling your land. They'll tell you anything to get the listing. They know that if they get the listing, you're stuck with them. Not here. Midwest Land Group has changed the way land is sold and is the only brokerage to offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee. That means if we don't meet your expectations, you can fire us. That puts all the pressure on us to perform. We don't just list land, we sell it. If you're looking to buy or sell property, don't before you talk to us. Visit us at MidwestLandGroup.com.
All right, our first question is up. It comes from Kurt Myers from Washington, Pennsylvania. It says, Don, you don't shy away from difficult questions. I think I have one for you today. Many big buck hunters, you included, have said that the hardest part of killing a true giant buck is finding one. I listened to a recent podcast where a well-known big buck fanatic discussed how he has a large network of people across the country who keep an eye out for big bucks for him. Then he attempts to get access to hunt them. He has paid landowners tens of thousands of dollars for permission to hunt and kill a particular buck. This potentially could also involve a finder's fee or special treatment for those who locate bucks for him. Although not illegal, this eliminates the most difficult part of the process of killing a giant. It also concerns me as to how a local hunter who may have been hunting this buck for years gets the rug pulled out from under him. I wanted to get your opinion on whether or not you consider this tactic ethical and honorable. Well, Kurt, it just so happens that I have an opinion on this topic, believe it or not. You know, there's twice in, since midsummer, I have been tipped off to giant bucks. Both were in other states. One was to the east of me and one was to the west of me. Two totally different situations, and that's where I want to go with my answer because I think each situation is unique. So we'll start with the one that was out east. I think we talked about it on the podcast a little bit. I was shown pictures of this deer, giant. I believed my source was credible. I drove, out to that area. I even met with the person who sent me the photo, drove me around the neighborhood, showed me exactly where he had gotten the photo from the road, what he knew about the landowners in the area, and I knocked on doors. I did get permission on one 40-acre tract, but that 40-acre tract was mainly ag fields with maybe 3 or 4 acres of cover, one little wooded draw through it, and that was about it. And when I talked to that landowner and he gave me permission, he also told me that there's about 10 or 12 other guys that have permission to hunt that farm. Well, I just decided it wasn't worth the effort and went home, not mad or anything. It was what it was. And then I had another situation in a state to the west of me where a photo was shared with me of a giant buck. I mean, a giant typical. And I mean, this deer, who knows? I don't know what the state record is for that particular state, but this buck had to be pushing it. I mean, he was a giant typical, the kind that I'm looking for. And the thing of it was, this buck was on public land that I could access. Well, I did my investigation, and I had a couple of phone calls with the site manager of that particular piece of public land, and he was more than willing to share everything he knew about the deer. Told me he knew about the photo that I had seen. He shared that photo, or didn't share it. He said that he would, help me, direct me to the area where that photo was taken. And he even knew the young man who had got the photo. And I thought about it for a couple of days, and I was actually going to travel out there and hang some cameras and do some scouting and hunt that deer. And I thought about it for a couple of days, and I thought, you know what? It was a younger guy in his 20s that got that photo. And I thought, I put myself in his shoes, and I thought, how would I feel if a picture of Zacchaeus got out because I showed it to one of my buddies that I trusted, and all of a sudden I have guys coming from out of state, sitting on my fence or property line and this and that. And I thought, you know what? That wouldn't sit well with me at all. And so I got back a hold of that site superintendent that was overseeing that public hunting land. And I said, I need you to put me in contact with that young man that got that photo. I said, I can't come out there and hunt that deer without that young man's blessing. If I just can't show up and start stepping on this guy's toes. And so he did. And I finally, had some correspondence with that young hunter. And he told me that he had 3 years of history with that deer, and he was going to hunt it himself. And he was pretty upset that he had shared that photo with a trusted friend, and it got out and made its way to me. And it didn't take it wasn't passed along too many times until it ended up on my phone. And I just, when he said he was going to be chasing the deer and that, I just knew the right thing for me was to walk away. And I told him, I said, you know what? You don't have to worry about me showing up and hunting your deer. And you also don't need me to worry about me sharing it with anybody else, where that deer's at or even the photo. I'm not going to share the photo. And I wished him the best of luck and said, I hope you kill that deer. And I was sincere. I think a lot of times we need to put ourselves in the position of the other person. And I think that's kind of what was alluded to in this question. What about the local guys? And it's really, I've chased some leads down, and it's kind of struck me here in the last month or so, actually, that is that really how I want to kill those big deer? Chasing down a lead, possibly stepping on somebody's toes. I wouldn't do that intentionally. But, even the situation out east where I got permission on that 40-acre tract, there's supposedly 10 or 12 other guys hunting that land. Would it be right for those 10 or 12 guys who have been hunting that land for years and years? I'm sure some of them have. Would it be right that all of a sudden they finally get a world-class buck to hunt and some guy like me shows up and starts hunting that land with them, whether I kill it or not? And I don't know, maybe it's old age setting in and I'm getting soft-hearted or whatever, but I've started putting myself in the other person's shoes a whole lot more, not just in hunting situations, but in other situations in life. And I think all of us need to do that more. And, it wasn't that many years ago that that young man out west, I wouldn't have cared whether he was mad at me or what. I'd have been on that public land trying to track that deer down. I'd have had, a bunch of trail cameras, and I'd have been all over that place. I'd have done everything legal. I wouldn't have broke any laws whatsoever, but I wouldn't have cared about stepping on that young man's toes. And I guess it's a maturity, age setting in that I think we all, and I'm also realizing that I had a hard time accepting this for a long time. And I'm starting to realize that God has put me in a pretty special position, that a lot of people are looking at me, and there's a lot of people trying to knock me off my perch, so to speak, with, false rumors, outright lies, things like that. And I've really become conscious of my position where people are looking at me, and I want to set a good example. And, one day I'm not going to be here anymore, and I don't want the people that remember me to remember bad things. I want them to remember that, just like this young man out there that I told him that I wasn't going to come and hunt his buck. I hope for the rest of his days, if he ever hears my name, if he ever sees a magazine article I wrote, if he ever watches a video of mine, I hope he has a good feeling about me because of how I handled that situation. And I'm going to, and I have been, more and more with each passing year, been more aware of the position I'm in and trying to set a good example. And that doesn't make me better than anybody else. I mean, I did all kinds of stupid stuff in my 61 years. Don't claim to be perfect today any more than I was years ago, but I do recognize that at this point, I've got a lot of people looking at me. Some are looking up to me and some are trying to kick me down, but I want to leave a positive impact on as many people as I can. And I'm not going to say, the question was, do I consider this ethical? Or I'm not going to go there. Ethics is something that each hunter needs to decide for themselves. But I do think, and I do encourage everybody to start thinking of the other guy and put yourself in the other person's shoes. And, it's just a deer. Your integrity and your character is going to be there for the rest of your life. Don't run it over a deer.
We announced that we had a company that we're working with that's doing some apparel for us, and one of the shirts that they actually made was "Big bucks make people do stupid things." Is it one of the quotes from the podcast? But you and I have said for a long time, even in our relationship, that there's never going to be a deer stand between us. There's not one buck out there that's worth ruining a friendship over. And I don't know. You just see so much drama unfold every single year, and it doesn't mean you don't stand up for what's right and stop trespassers and stuff like poachers and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of best friends that end up getting divided every year just because of hurt feelings, and it's just not worth it. And maybe, like you said, that comes with a little bit of age. But I think both of us have also decided that if we don't kill another deer in our life, it's okay.
We've killed more than our fair share. I definitely have. And, there's legal and illegal. That's black and white. But there's that gray area in between, where it's legal, but is it right? And it just comes down to, putting yourself in the other person's shoes. And sometimes something can be illegal and yet right. And a good example, let's say you see a deer that's wounded, and let's say you're out hunting and you've already filled your buck tag, but you still got a doe tag. You're trying to shoot a doe for the freezer, and along comes some buck that's been injured and suffering and obviously is not going to make it. It's illegal for you to shoot that deer, but it's also, in my opinion, unethical for you to allow that animal to suffer. What do you do? And I'm not going to, tell anyone what they should do, but it's that ethical thing. One of the things, Al Foster was with me when I recovered that deer this week. He was one of the guys there, and I remember the impact that Al had on me when I met him when I was about, 18, 19 years old. And you know how 18, 19-year-old kids are. I mean, rowdy and wild and sowing their wild oats and just going crazy at times. And I remember some of the earliest conversations with Al were about ethical issues. And also, I was corresponding with Gene Wenzel a lot back in those days, and just started handwritten letters and such. And Al and Gene Wenzel had a huge impact on me as far as my ethics. And, how you kill your deer is way more important than how big those deer are. You should do it in a way that's honoring of that animal and that you would be proud of it. Would you do it the same way in front of a stadium full of people as you would if nobody's looking? And that's the way that when we go to the whitetail woods, that's how we should be acting. We should be acting as if there was a whole stadium full of people watching us. And if we do that, then the world would be a whole lot better place.
Next question.
Got off on a little tangent on that one. I took it a little bit. Next one comes from Steve Myers from Terre Haute, Indiana. It says, hello to both of you. This question is for Don. It pertains to your comment about your pursuit of your target buck, Zacchaeus. You state you're not going to harvest him out of your 360 blinds, but by a tree stand. I think your listeners, as well as myself, would like some clarification on that. You stated many times how important playing the wind was in harvesting a mature buck, saying it doesn't matter what you smell like if you play the wind. By hunting him out of a tree stand, it makes us believe that it offers more of a challenge for you. Why is it? Why is that? And why do you hunt out of 360 blinds in the first place? If you are playing the wind, it shouldn't matter what you are in. Thanks and God bless. Well, Steve, I play the wind no matter if I'm in a blind or a stand. I don't go to a blind and just ignore the wind and think that I'm scent free and that I'm playing the wind no matter what. And playing the wind is a whole lot more than containing your scent. And you got to consider what that deer is doing. So the reason I did it out of a tree stand instead of, or hunted for Zacchaeus out of a tree stand instead of a blind, yeah, it was for the added challenge, but the challenge is not what you think. It's not because if I was hunting at a blind, I would be containing my scent. It was because I've got 7 blinds on my farm in 7 of the best locations that there are. And I was giving up those locations and naming the buck Zacchaeus. If you know the Bible at all, Zacchaeus climbed the sycamore tree to get a glimpse of Jesus as he came by, because Zacchaeus was a short guy and there was such a crowd he couldn't see Jesus without climbing that tree. And so what it all came down to was when I was trying to come up with a name for this buck, I wanted a Bible name. And, someone that was in the Bible, and it just hit me that call him Zacchaeus and hunt him from a tree instead of a blind. So the added challenge had nothing to do with the wind. It was about giving up 7 of the best spots on my farm. So I'm, to help, folks take something positive away from this that they can apply, I'm playing the wind no matter if I'm in a tree or in a blind.
The problem I have with marketing gimmicks in this industry right now, this is one of them, and that is a scent-free blind. Well, guess what, people? The wind is blowing when you walk into the blind and when you leave the blind. Even if your blind is 100% scent proof, you're still alerting that deer in its bed. If you're hunting the way we're hunting on the edge of bedding cover, you're still messing things up walking there and out. So what a blind really does for us, if people want us to be 100% honest, you can speak for yourself, but I'll speak for me. Blind lets us get away with a ton more movement. And when we got somebody with us, we can communicate a whole lot better when we're filming versus being in a tree stand off to the side, having to tap, all of that movement. You got room, you can spread out, you can run a heater when it's cold. It's not the wind. The biggest thing it does is when we have people with us, it cuts down on movement and noise. That's the 2 biggest things. You and I, when we hunt in a blind, we talk more while we're hunting in a blind than we do the entire week on the phone.
No doubt about it. The other thing with a blind is you can, if you're hunting from a tree stand, you need a tree. You need the right tree, a tree that will hide you, not just a telephone pole that you stick a stand on the side of. And with a blind, you can stick it anywhere you need to. It can be out on a field edge. That doesn't have to be a tree. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility on your exact location where you're going to sit. But as far as playing the wind, you're always playing the wind. And I'll say this also about playing the wind. You're going to want to watch this Zacchaeus video when it's released, because absolutely the wind was critical about that hunt and getting a shot at that deer. And playing the wind is a whole lot more than being scent free. That buck came in, he was using the wind when he came in. I just happened to be where he couldn't smell me. And we're going to illustrate that with a graphic, from an aerial view of my farm. We're going to show exactly what that deer did from daylight that morning when he came into bed until he got shot. And this is probably going to be the most educational hunt video that has ever been produced, for early season especially.
Well, I think that hunting in a tree stand and killing a mature buck is tougher than in a blind, but it's because of movement, not because of wind. Concealing, you drawing your bow back, moving around, noise. But I tell you what, until it gets really, really cold and I get bougie and want to run that heater, I actually like hunting in tree stands better than a blind. I like being out on the tree. Until it gets really, really cold, and I'm just too old and fat that I like to be, when it's rainy and cold and nasty, that's when I really like those 360 blinds, don't you?
I do. That's why I got 7 of them on my property.
And they're
when
going
to... the weather's nice, I would rather be in a tree. I'll tell you this, that whatever the temperature is outside, it's about 20 degrees hotter in that blind. And if it's 70, it's 90 in that blind. I don't want to be sitting in a 90-degree sauna. But I'll tell you what, when it's 0 out, I'll sit in a 20-degree blind, especially when you turn the heater on and it becomes 50, 60 degrees. I'll take that any day. All right. Next one comes from Brett Coach from Tremont, Illinois. It says, Don, I would like to hear some of your tips for hunting small sections of cover. I have found deer living in small sections of cover in open ag country, but I can't seem to figure out how to access or hunt these 2 to 5 acre pieces. With such a small area of timber, how are you getting into these places without blowing deer out? Thanks for the podcast and all you do for the hunting community. Well, Brett, I do a lot of my hunting in places like that, especially off of my farm. My permission properties that you just described them, they're small tracts that other people are overlooking. A couple of keys. First of all, you got to get your stand up in the spring or months before hunting season. You can't just go out there this time of the year, season's open, put up a stand, come back to tomorrow or next week and hunt it. That buck is out in those little tracts of cover because he feels safe there. And most of the time, you get one chance to bump him and he's gone. Occasionally, you'll get a second chance, but most of the time, you get one chance and he's gone. So you got to be set up. Your stand has to be in place months ahead of time. Do it right after season in the spring before it greens up. Hang your stand, cut your shooting lanes, and then when it comes time when there's a shooter buck there, then you kill him. The other thing is trail cameras. Let trail cameras soak in those places to show you which bucks are using them. In early season, I'm hunting evenings only. Went through that last week. Took some grief this week when people thought I shot Zacchaeus on a morning hunt, but he was shot in the evening. In this time of the year, there's typically enough vegetation on the trees and such that you can slip in there, and especially if there's a good wind blowing that day. A windy day, that's a great day to slip in, because a lot of times that wind will die right before dark. That wind will die down, and that's when the bucks get up and start moving. The wind and the vegetation will help you slip in early season on an afternoon hunt. Once the leaves are off the trees, you start getting around the 1st of November, at least in my part of the world, it's morning only. You get in there and you wait for him, and you hope that when he comes in there, he doesn't scent check. Because if he does, it'll be over in the dark, and sometimes you don't even know it. Sometimes you may be sitting there and you hear him blow. Other times you don't even know it happened. Those places are way, way better for early season hunts than they are even during the rut, because it's just so difficult to get in there when the leaves are off the trees. And even if you get in there in the morning in the dark, there's a good chance he's going to be scent checking that little patch before he comes in there.
All right. Great question. Enjoy your free t-shirt.
Next one comes from Clayton Carroll from Bullard, Texas. It says, Don and Terry, thank you for all that you do to represent the glory of God. Access for such a great podcast, which is highlight of my Monday mornings. On last week's podcast, you touch on the folks who talk about getting in the woods 3 hours before daylight, claiming to beat the deer to their beds. I have struggled in the past to find the best time to try to enter my stands, whether it be morning or evenings. I spend so much thought on access, but I guess I'm always wary of the chance I could be entering when a mature buck is coming through the area. Could you share some advice on when you get to your stands and if the time of the year alters that? Well, the time of the year does to some degree. Early season, I'm primarily hunting evenings only until the last few days of October, and then I'm hunting only mornings with a cold front. On those evening hunts, early season, I want to be there the last 2 hours of daylight. And very, very, very rarely are you going to see a mature buck on his feet in early season more than 2 hours before daylight, and usually it's the last 30 minutes, to be honest. But so I'm hunting the last 2 hours. On those morning hunts, I'll start, like I said, the cold fronts in late October, and then I'll hunt a lot of mornings in November. Actually, in November, mornings become better than afternoons. But any morning hunt, I don't get in too early. I try to get in about 15 or 20 minutes before shooting light. I just don't think there's any reason to get in any earlier. If the buck comes in earlier than that, he's probably going to be past your position anyway. You're not going to get a shot at him. At least that's my theory anyway. That's just how I do it. And then we get into the late season. Again, it's the last 2 hours of daylight. And, I want to be in my stand for that full last 2 hours. And that's pretty much it for me. I don't overthink it. The access route you take to your stand is probably every bit or more important than how early you arrive. So you can arrive 3 hours before you really need to be there. And if you've got poor access, it doesn't matter. You probably ruined your hunt, no matter how early you get in. So access to the stand or blind is way more important than the timing.
Okay. All right, last one, and we'll wrap it up for the day.
This one comes from Eric Shankster from Silver Lake, Indiana. It says, "Hey, Don and Terry, I love listening to the podcast. My question is, Don, what made you decide to not gun hunt? I have only hunted with a gun in the past, but thinking about getting into archery and want to know your opinion on the pros and cons of both." Well, Eric, I started out actually as a gun hunter for deer. The thing that made me take up archery was our deer season in Illinois. Our firearms deer season in Illinois was only 6 days long back then. We got 3 days in November, and then we got a 3-day season in December. And I was just so ate up with it that 6 days a year was not going to cut it for me. And I wasn't really an archer. I had very little interest in archery, really. I mean, I was a firearm hunter for small game and such, and I became an archer or a bow hunter out of necessity to start with. And then the other thing is the culture back in those days was totally different than it is today. So, I continued for a few years to hunt with both gun and bow. And the frustrating thing for me was during gun season, it was a absolute free for all. Way more hunters in the woods than there was during the archery season. And back in those days, there was a lot of driving deer. In fact, a lot of the local hunters, there's various groups of local farmers that got together in my neighborhood and around the area, and all they did was drive deer. And, some of them were fine, but there was one group in particular that hunted to some of the same areas that I bow hunted in, and that particular group had no respect whatsoever for other deer hunters. They would see a deer hunter in his stand in orange, and they'd put a drive on and walk right under that hunter, just pushing out the whole woods. And a couple of times of that, and I was sick of gun hunting, and it took a little bit for me to muster up the courage or whatever to give up the gun, because that's how I'd started. And at that point, I'd done most of my hunting with a gun, not just deer, but other things. But once I gave up that first gun season, it was easy after that. I didn't even look forward, because I used to look forward to firearm season just like Christmas morning. I mean, I couldn't wait. I'd get, weeks before opening day of gun season, I was getting fired up, and, I was preparing my gear and, thinking of what food I was going to take to the stand and everything. And that just, it got ruined by the lack of respect from other hunters. And also archery season is more a one-on-one. It's a challenge. Half the deer that I shot with a gun, and I didn't shoot that many, but I shot a few with a gun, and a lot of those were running from other hunters. They weren't going about their business, just, doing what a deer does when nobody's around. They were running from other hunters and just happened to come by me, and they got shot. There's no skill in that whatsoever. It's 100% blind luck. And I decided I wanted to be more successful, and it takes more than luck to take your success to the level that I wanted to take it to. And the 3-month archery season that we had back in those days allowed me way, way more time in the woods. And then when I started my job out of high school, I would save up all my vacation time for November, and I would literally spend more time in the woods in 1 week than most hunters spend in an entire year. And that includes scouting and everything they do. And I think that's a big reason for the success I had later in life was the time I put in. But and also the close range that, with that bow, it's a close range weapon. And seeing that buck at, 15, 20 yards is a whole lot different than seeing him at 70 or 80 or 100 yards and killing him. When you get that deer into 20 yards, man, you've accomplished something. Whether you kill him or not, you've accomplished something. And that's the big difference for me. Now, I say all this, I don't have a thing against the gun hunters. In most states, firearm hunting is necessary to keep the deer herds in check. That's when the majority of the harvest, happens. So I don't want anybody to think I'm against gun hunters. I'm not whatsoever. But for me, it's the up close personal experience, one-on-one, not having deer run by, not, dealing with a woods full of people that attracts me and to the archery season over the gun season.
Yep. Yeah, I love how close you get when you're bow hunting, and then I also really like the extended season, being able to hunt more than just a couple days or a couple weeks. That's bow hunting special. It's once you get in it, it's pretty addictive. So it's kind of that next level. You gun hunt, then you go to archery, and then you go into habitat management. And then you start loving the habitat even more than you like the hunting. So we've talked about that before. So all right, well, you got your family coming in and your grandson to hunt this weekend. What else is on the docket for? Are you going to just keep checking trail cameras as the crops keep getting pulled out, or what?
Yeah, I'm going to check those cameras tomorrow. I made a call today to someone about a couple of new properties I want to check out and hang some cameras on if I can get permission. Do some doe management. It's supposed to be a lot cooler this coming week, and I want to get some does shot. If I don't, my neighbors are going to go crazy, and I don't blame them. The deer damage on some of the fields around my house this summer was unlike anything I've ever seen. And I'm going to do my part to keep my neighbors happy. I've got great neighbors, and the last thing I want is to get them upset because of the deer are doing too much damage to their crops.
Well, Dwayne Hopkins and I from Real World have an interesting project going on. Since I don't have a target buck on my home farm this year, I'm going to terminate some of my plots that didn't do real well, and we're going to be doing a new super secret test analysis on a couple fall products that we're planning late to do tissue analysis on side by side throughout the winter and spring. So the next couple of days, I'm going to be getting crops ready, ground ready for that. And then a friend of mine has a couple mature 8-pointers that he wants off the farm. So I reckon I'm going to climb in a tree stand in the state of Kentucky for the first time on October 11th. I haven't been in a tree stand in the state of Kentucky for almost a month. So go try to help him out and kill a target cull buck that he wants and see what we can do. And then get ready for coming to Illinois. So,
well, I hope you tag a buck in Kentucky this week.
We'll see.
Yep.
Well, thanks everybody. Like I said, we really appreciate the support for Lester's Feet. It's, we played that video earlier. It's not what we set out to do when we started this foundation, but what we did set out to do with this foundation is to help others. And we have the means and have the community. If you want to join in and help with us on that, by all means, jump in. We don't care where you help people, just find a way to help people. That's what we're encouraging you to do. If you're not sure about what's safe to put your money at, we're offering that opportunity. But we also want you to stay tuned after Don closes out the show. Ty Miller from Small Acre Hunting is going to be doing our Sunday night prayer time this week. And he does such a great job with it. And also is really good content on Chasing Giants TV. But we really appreciate the relationship with Ty and the stuff he brings on Sunday Night Prayer Time. But thank you guys so much for your support of Lester's Feet and the new TV show. We really appreciate it.
God bless everyone. See you back here next week.
Hey guys, Ty here. Welcome to Sunday Night Prayer Time. As I was debating what I wanted to talk about tonight, my 6 a.m. Bible study that meets each week, we're working through the book of Romans. And a while back, I actually found myself kind of reading ahead a little bit. And I was at the part in chapter 9 when Paul shares the symbolism of potter and the clay. And it really got me thinking, because in the past couple weeks, something happened that I don't think anybody expected in our area, nor myself. Growing up, I had a dear friend. We were closer in elementary school. His name was Justin. And to know Justin was to love Justin. And I know that seems very cliche, but I genuinely have never met any of my old classmates. I never knew any then, and I'll probably never meet any in the future that would say they didn't like Justin. He just was a bundle of joy, which is kind of amazing given his situation. You see, Justin was born with a variety of different things, but I know he had a pretty severe case of spina bifida, was my understanding. And he was wheelchair bound from the first moment I met him. He could not walk, nor was that on the horizon of his future. And there was a bunch of other medical things and such, but Justin was just a guy that loved sports. He loved Lord of the Rings. He loved all kinds of different things. Me and him hit it off from a very young age, like I was saying, and I can still remember, and the reason I'm sharing this will make sense, but bear with me for a moment. I was very young. I was over at his house. I believe it was for his birthday or something, and we were having a conversation, and it was either he was making a wish for something for his birthday or whatever, and I asked him in my childish ignorance, do you ever wish that God would fix you? And I'll never forget what that young Justin said to me. He looked me in the eye and he said, Ty, I was not made to walk this earth. That's not what he intended me to do. And I can remember even as a young kid, I think I realized when he said what he said, there was a maturity in his response that I think the young me didn't know what to do with. And I have no doubt I got very uncomfortable, but that was something that stuck with me for years. Justin would go on to be a very, very big person. I mean, he was a star in the soapbox derby racing industry, believe it or not. But because of his issues with spina bifida, he could not use foot pedals. So
to this day, if a driver needs hand-assisted braking, he's the reason that hand-assisted braking was made possible, and it's legal to use, and it's called the Justin brake. And Frankie Muniz, for those who might watch some TV or grew up in the era of Malcolm in the Middle, that was what he's most popular for. Frankie Muniz played Justin in a movie, and I can still remember 8th grade year. We all got to go down to the cafeteria and watch this movie, and it was just a really cool thing to see somebody that you really loved and you just thought the world of make it big. I mean, the popular kid from the area. And Justin went on to another high school, and we stayed in touch via social media. And, there's a lot of bad about social media, but the one thing that is awesome about it is you can stay connected to people. And Justin was one of those guys that was always in your corner, always cheering you on. And he actually had become very interested in hunting. And my goal was this year, if we didn't get it done this year, next year, me and him, we were going to make a plan to get him in a deer blind. Make a path, make a way for me to get him in there and let him experience deer hunting. It was something he was very, very intrigued by. And then I got the news, it's probably been 2 or 3 weeks now. There was a police chase on a road just south of our house, actually. Guy fleeing from the cops caused an accident, and the vehicle that was forced off the road and crashed was being driven by Justin's wife, and Justin did not survive. Justin was the epitome of what Romans and what I'm going to share in Colossians. And I think back to that statement he made. He was not made to walk this earth. He was not focused on what we see here on earth. Justin was focused on something much higher. Justin understood that his calling was not to include walking on this earth. His calling was not to be, quote unquote, normal as the world would see him. And there's a couple scripture verses I want to share with you. And in Romans 9, chapter 19, actually closer to like 20. But who are you, O man, to answer back to God? Will what is molded say to its molder, why have you made me like this? Has the potter no right over the clay to make out of the same lump one vessel for honored use and another for dishonorable use? Justin never once questioned his maker. I mean, I'm sure he did. Don't get me wrong, but Justin, he didn't live a life of questioning why. It almost felt like he was living a life of, okay, what because of this am I called to do? What because of this am I going to do for you, God? And the testimony that he played in so many other people's life is just incredible. And I hope that maybe there's somebody that's going to be impacted by it in this. And I also thought of Colossians chapter 3, verse 2. And it is actually going to be on my arrows next year. I'm getting a wrap made. It's going to be Colossians 3:2. And it's going to be, set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. My brother Justin was that, and I wish we would have remained closer than we did. I'm so blessed that I think it was just a week prior, we were chatting via Messenger about hunting, of course, and about Lord of the Rings. Those were the two biggest things that he always would message me about. I'm a Tolkien nerd, and so is he. And it's just a blessing to call him a brother. And there hasn't been a moment in my life when I'm going through something that in some capacity, what Justin said that day and the heart of his message to that ignorant little Ty, asking him if he wanted God to fix him. There's not a moment that goes by when I'm going through something that I don't remember that and remember I'm not to question God's design. I'm not to question God's plan. I should look forward to the opportunities in front of me with what he has given me and what he will give me, and go towards that. To live a life of accepting that God made me exactly how he wanted to. There were no mistakes in how he molded me. The only mistakes that might exhibit in me are when I cling to my sinful nature and not he who created me. Let's go to prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, every single person on bended knee and closed eye and bowed head right now, you created. You were our potter. We were your clay. And you designed us exactly as you desired. You designed us in such a beautiful and intricate way that not one other person is exactly like us. And you made no mistakes. Some of us may be struggling with sins, afflictions, addictions, questioning physical setbacks that we have. And we're thinking you made a mistake. We think that we are a mistake. We don't see what you designed. We don't see us as you see us. We don't see ourselves as my dear brother Justin saw himself. God, grant us the ability to just get a glimpse of what amazing creation we are to you. Let us set our eyes not on things of this earth, not on things we see in the mirror, not on things that we hear, not on things that we tell ourselves, not on the inward issues and struggles of our life, but let us set our eyes on you. Let us set our eyes on you, which gives us so much to be thankful for. And nurture within us a grateful heart, that we may step forth and exude that love and that gratefulness to all of your creation, all of those around us. If by some grace we can be of service to you, let us serve you and serve you well. I ask all this on behalf of every man and woman listening, and especially myself, God, because I need the reminder. I need your help. In your heavenly name, amen. God bless everybody. And remember, you were fearfully and wonderfully made, and he did not make a mistake. God bless.